Welcome back, everybody. We're diving into ancient India today. An era of massive change, kingdoms rising and falling, new ideas popping up everywhere.
There's a dynamic period for sure.
Right. And right in the thick of it all, you have this visionary leader emerging, Chandragupta Maurya.
Now there's a name that echoes through history.
Big time. And we're going beyond just, the usual names and dates.
Yeah.
We want to uncover, what made this guy tick.
The why behind the what, so to speak.
Exactly. So how did he manage to build an empire from scratch? And what does his legacy actually mean, looking back?
Well, the thing is, Chandragupta's story isn't just about military conquest. It's about grasping the political landscape of his time.
So more than just a conqueror. He was a strategist playing a high-stakes game.
Exactly. And the stakes were incredibly high. Imagine a map of ancient India, right? But it's divided into these powerful kingdoms. They called them Mahajanapadas.
Okay, so a bunch of kingdoms all vying for power.
Yeah, each one with their own ambitions, strengths, weaknesses. It was a period of intense competition.
Like a real-life Game of Thrones situation.
You could say that. Now, three of these Mahajanapadas really stand out: Magadha, Kosala, and Vatsa.
All right, let's break those down. Magadha first. What made them so powerful?
Well, think prime real estate. They had control of the Gangetic Plains. Super fertile land, right?
So they had the resources.
Abundant resources. And, here's the clincher, they had access to iron ore.
Iron. That's a game changer, especially back then. Weapons, tools.
Right. It gave them a huge advantage militarily, like having the most advanced tech of their time.
Makes sense. So Magadha was all about that military might. What about Kosala?
Kosala was different. They weren't about brute force. Think more master planners, super efficient administrators, strong legal system.
So more about order and stability than just raw power.
Yeah, they were playing the long game, building a lasting system.
Interesting. Okay, and Vatsa, the last of our big three.
Vatsa. They were the merchant kings. Skilled artisans, trade routes flowing with luxury goods.
So they had the economic power.
Absolutely. They understood wealth and commerce.
Okay, so we have Magadha with the muscle, Kosala with the brains, and Vatsa with the money. A pretty diverse power struggle going on.
Yeah, it was a complex landscape. And you have to remember, this was also the time when those ancient Hindu texts, the Vedas, were being composed.
Oh, right. So not just political upheaval, but a spiritual and philosophical revolution, too.
Exactly. And the Vedas introduced concepts like dharma and karma, huge ideas that became deeply intertwined with the political scene.
Dharma and karma. Big, big concepts. Can you unpack those for us a bit?
Sure. Think of dharma as your cosmic job description. Everyone has a duty based on their role in society.
Keep things running smoothly.
Right. Warriors protect, rulers govern justly, and so on. Harmony and order, that's the key.
So dharma's like ancient Indians. Stay in your lane. Interesting.
And what about karma? Karma is like the cosmic scorecard. Every action has consequences, not just in this life, but maybe even future lives.
So actions have repercussions beyond just the here and now.
Yeah. It's a system of accountability that encourages people to act in line with dharma.
Okay, so it wasn't just about earthly power. There's this whole other spiritual dimension to leadership, right?
Absolutely. It wasn't just about ruling effectively, but also righteously. But here's the thing. Not everyone was totally on board with that Vedic worldview.
You mentioned this was a time of change, right? New ideas challenging the old.
Exactly. So while the Vedic tradition was dominant, new religious movements like Jainism and Buddhism were emerging.
So imagine these movements shaking things up, offering different paths to spiritual liberation.
Yeah, challenging the established order. A real ferment of ideas,
Wow, so you have political upheaval, spiritual change, new ideas clashing with the old. What a backdrop. And this is the world Chandragupta Maurya is born into, right?
Right into the thick of it. He sees these competing kingdoms, the shifting alliances, those new religious ideas.
It's like he's watching this whole game unfold before him, taking notes on what works, what doesn't.
And, he wasn't content just being another player in the game. He had a bigger vision.
So he wasn't just going to follow the rules, he was going to rewrite them. What did he want?
He saw India as fragmented, vulnerable. He envisioned a unified, powerful empire.
Ambitious.
Yeah, he wanted to secure borders, promote prosperity, build a lasting legacy. A unified India was the key.
So he's thinking big picture, not just conquest, but building a stable, enduring state. Where does he even begin with something that massive?
Well, his first target was the Nanda Dynasty. They ruled Magadha, remember?
The ones with all the iron.
Exactly. Chandragupta knew he needed to control those resources to achieve his vision.
It's like a modern-day arms race. Control the resources, you control the power. But how do you take on such a powerful opponent? I mean, they're the big dogs.
That's where Chandragupta's strategic genius comes in. He knew he couldn't win with brute force alone. He needed a multi-pronged approach.
Okay, so like a smarter, more calculated approach. What did he do?
First, he started forging alliances with other kingdoms, uniting those who felt threatened by the Nandas.
So he's playing the political game, building a coalition, classic divide and conquer.
Right. But he also needed a strong military. He saw how effective Magadha's was, but he also learned from Kosala's discipline and organization.
He's cherry-picking the best strategies then.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He created a well-trained, well-equipped army, ready to face the Nandas head-on.
So he's got the political maneuvering, the military might, anything else up his sleeve.
But there's more. He added another layer to his strategy. Espionage.
Espionage. Okay, now it's getting really interesting.
He developed a whole network of spies, gathering intel, identifying weaknesses, even sowing discord among the Nandas.
So he's adding a bit of subterfuge to the mix. Wow, he was thinking several steps ahead, wasn't he? Did it work? I mean, did he actually manage to take down the Nandas?
It did work. His victory over the Nandas was a turning point, a pivotal moment in Indian history. But it wasn't just about military tactics.
It sounds like it was about a deeper understanding of power dynamics.
Exactly. He combined that military might with political savvy, administrative skills, and even, a dash of espionage.
And that's how the Mauryan Empire was born, out of the ashes of the Nandas.
Precisely. But conquering the land was just the start. Chandragupta was a builder, not just a conqueror. He knew that real power was about creating a system that could govern, maintain order, last.
So, not just winning battles, but building a lasting legacy. Now, that's where things get really interesting.
And that's a story for part 2 of our deep dive. Stay tuned.
I'm hooked already. We'll be back soon to unravel how he turned that vision into reality. Don't go anywhere.
It's kind of amazing how Chandragupta shifted gears, right? From military mastermind to, empire builder.
Yeah, it's one thing to conquer, but then what? How do you actually run this massive empire?
He knew that was the real challenge. Creating a system that could govern effectively, that could last. And this is where his vision for, a unified, efficiently run India comes into play.
So less about brute force, more about smart systems. Did he just copy what the Mahajanapadas were doing?
He definitely drew inspiration from them, but he also innovated, adapted those ideas to create something uniquely Mauryan.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What were some of the key elements of this new system? Give me the highlights.
One of the biggest things was establishing a centralized administration. Imagine this vast network, right? Spanning the whole empire, making sure things run smoothly, taxes are collected.
Sounds like a logistical nightmare. But I guess it makes sense. A strong central authority to keep everyone in check, prevent those internal conflicts.
Exactly. And to pull it off, he divided the empire into provinces, each one with a governor appointed by him. Think of it like a pyramid structure with the king at the top.
So a clear chain of command, ensuring his authority reaches every corner of the empire.
Exactly. But it wasn't just about control. He also knew the importance of infrastructure, roads, irrigation, all that good stuff. Facilitating trade, communication, making the empire function as a whole.
Smart. A well-connected empire is a prosperous one. What about law and order? How do you ensure justice across such a vast and diverse territory?
He codified laws, set up courts at different levels, trying to create a more standardized, accessible legal system for everyone. And he drew a lot of inspiration from those Vedic traditions, incorporating those ideas of dharma.
So that concept of cosmic duty wasn't just some abstract idea. It had real-world implications. That's fascinating. Did he just lift everything straight from the Vedas, though?
He was influenced by them, for sure, but he also knew he needed flexibility. I mean, the empire was diverse, with different customs, beliefs. He had to account for that.
So a blend of tradition and pragmatism, I guess you could say, seems to be a recurring theme with Chandragupta. What about the military? Did he just disband the army after the conquest?
Oh, no, not at all. He understood you need strength to maintain order, to defend your borders. So he created a standing army.
A standing army. Was that common back then?
Not really. It was pretty innovative for the time. And of course, he kept that sophisticated intelligence network going. Spies and informants keeping him in the loop, making sure there were no surprises.
A standing army. A spy network. Sounds like he was taking no chances. But all of this must have cost a fortune. How did he pay for it all?
Well, that's where his economic policies come in. He implemented a system of taxation to bring in revenue to support the administration, the military, all those infrastructure projects. And he also encouraged trade, agriculture, realizing that a strong economy is crucial for stability.
It's like he's thinking on all these different levels at once. Military, political, economic, even social. A real multifaceted approach.
And remember those merchant kings from Vatsa? He knew how valuable their skills were, encouraged commerce and craftsmanship, recognizing they contributed to the empire's wealth and its cultural vibrancy.
So he's weaving together all these different threads. The military power of Magadha, the administrative efficiency of Kosala, the economic savvy of Vatsa, even those spiritual ideas of dharma and karma. It's like he's creating this tapestry, drawing on the best of what India had to offer.
That's a great way to put it. It's this holistic view, this understanding of how everything is interconnected that makes Chandragupta such a remarkable leader. He wasn't just a conqueror, he was a builder, a reformer, laying the foundation for one of the most enduring empires in Indian history.
And his reign, it was relatively short, wasn't it? Only about 24 years.
It was. But the amount he accomplished in those years is incredible. It really speaks to his strategic thinking, his ability to delegate, his laser focus on his vision.
It makes you wonder what he could have achieved if he'd had more time.
I know, right? But even in those 24 years, he left an undeniable mark on India, a legacy that continued to influence Indian politics and society for centuries.
That's amazing. You've painted this picture of Chandragupta as a military strategist, an empire builder, a reformer. But what about the man himself? What do we actually know about his personality, his beliefs?
That's where things get even more interesting. We have to dig into those accounts of his life, the stories passed down, try to piece together a portrait of this complex, enigmatic figure.
I can't wait. That sounds like the perfect lead-in to part 3 of our deep dive. Stay tuned, everyone. We're about to uncover the man behind the myth, the human being who shaped the destiny of an empire. Okay, so we've talked about Chandragupta's rise to power, his strategic brilliance, his empire building. But now I'm really curious about, the man behind the curtain. What was he really like as a person?
That's the million-dollar question. We have a pretty good grasp of his accomplishments, what he achieved, but his personality, that remains a bit of a mystery. The sources we have, they paint a picture that's, well, it's complicated.
So it's like we have pieces of the puzzle, but not the whole picture.
Yeah, exactly. Some accounts portray him as this ruthless pragmatist, someone who was willing to do whatever it took to reach his goals. Remember that spy network we talked about? He wasn't afraid to get his hands dirty,
Yeah.
to secure his power, protect the empire.
So definitely a shrewd operator.
Yeah.
But you mentioned earlier that there were also hints of a more spiritual side to him, right? That Vedic influence.
Oh, yeah. And some sources even go so far as to say that he renounced his throne later in life.
Renounced his throne. Whoa, hold on. He walked away from it all after building this incredible empire.
That's what some of the stories say. Apparently, he embraced Jainism, a religion that emphasizes nonviolence, detachment from worldly possessions.
Wow. That's a pretty dramatic shift, to say the least. To go from conquering an empire to giving it all up for spiritual enlightenment. It's hard to wrap my head around that. Do you think there's any truth to those accounts, or are they just legends?
It's tough to say for sure. Ancient sources, they often blend fact and fiction, Myth and reality get intertwined. But I think it's interesting to consider how those stories, even if they're embellished, reflect certain values and beliefs about leadership.
I see what you mean. Maybe they tell us more about how people viewed power and ambition than about Chandragupta himself. What about his legacy, though? How did his reign shape the course of Indian history?
Oh, his impact was huge. He really set the stage for centralized rule in India. He created a model for efficient administration and basically laid the groundwork for the Mauryan Empire to expand and prosper under his successors, especially his grandson, Ashoka.
Oh, yeah, Ashoka, the one who converted to Buddhism and spread it throughout the empire. Didn't we do deep dive on him a while back?
We did. And you remember how his reign was marked by, this shift away from conquest and towards a more peaceful, ethical approach to governing?
I do. It's almost like a complete 180 from his grandfather's approach.
But, and this is the interesting part, that shift was only possible because of the strong foundations Chandragupta laid. He created a system that was resilient, could adapt, could support those ambitious projects like Ashoka's promotion of Buddhism.
So, in a way, both of them, grandfather and grandson, represent different facets of that Mauryan legacy.
Mm.
Chandragupta with the strategic brilliance, Ashoka with the ethical vision. It's pretty amazing.
It really is. And I think their story highlights how leadership is this complex thing. It's not just about strategy and administration. It's about understanding cultural values, adapting to change, maybe even, engaging in some spiritual reflection.
That's a great point. Chandragupta's life, it's full of these twists and turns. Conquering an empire, maybe renouncing it all. It makes you think about power, the burdens of leadership, ambition, duty, legacy, all those big questions.
Exactly. And those are the questions that keep us coming back to history, I think. It's not just about the facts and dates. It's about understanding the human experience, the choices people made, and how those choices shape the world we live in.
This deep dive into Chandragupta Maurya has been incredible. We've explored this era of massive change in ancient India, with all these kingdoms battling it out, new ideas emerging, and this incredible figure who rose to unite it all and build a lasting empire.
And along the way, we've uncovered some valuable lessons about leadership, strategy, and just the complexities of power. Chandragupta was a shrewd strategist, a visionary leader, and, maybe even a spiritual seeker in the end.
His story is definitely one for the ages. It makes you think about the possibilities, the choices we make, and the impact we can have.
It's a story that continues to resonate, to inspire us, and to remind us of the enduring power of the human spirit.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
Well, folks, that's a wrap on our deep dive into the world of Chandragupta Maurya. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time for another journey into the past. Until then, keep exploring.